You want me to put that on my Tudor?
This one's wife. With love. Meghan. Copying again. Why? Hello. I'm H.G. Tudor. This One's Wife's forthcoming cookery series had its trailer launched to the world yesterday. It provided us with a glimpse of what is to come in terms of this one's wife wearing dresses and flouncing around the kitchen with various third parties, with a breathy voiceover pumping out the usual word salad and fridge magnet platitudes that we've come to expect of this dull narcissist. It's highly stylized, trying to sell a particular image of this one's wife as she turns to her latest project in an attempt to find something at which she thinks that she will be ultimately successful. As ever, this one's wife has not done her appropriate homework beforehand, as she's entering a very crowded marketplace. Cookery shows are ten a penny. The likes of Jacques Pepin and Julia Child, in effect, invented the concept of celebrity chefs, and certainly in the last 20 or so years, they have risen to prominence with a plethora of shows. Accordingly, this one's wife is entering a very crowded marketplace with her latest offering, and in order to make a success of it, she would have to rely upon one of two things to ensure that success comes her way. The first would be to stand out from the crowd. If that's not possible, then it would be to rely upon popularity. For instance, with a cookery show, it's going to involve food, obviously, the gathering of ingredients, the actual cooking process. Some instances it's fronted by the chef alone. Sometimes it's in an interesting location. It might be in a country kitchen, a more modern kitchen. It might be an outside kitchen. It might be on the move, out and about in a forest or the wilderness or such like. So you can have differences there. But in order to stand out, you need to provide some kind of new approach. Is there a new style of cooking? Is there a new format in relation to the way that the programme appears? The delivery of the show, is it done differently? Is it appealing to a particular dynamic? We've had, for instance, the Mockney style of Jamie Oliver as the naked chef, the more confrontational style of Gordon Ramsay. There's the home goddess approach of Martha Stewart, the science of cooking and baking with Alton Brown, Heston Blumenthal's more innovative approach to the creation of food delights. And you'll be able to identify other individuals that have stood out for a particular reason. This one's wife isn't able to stand out, and I'll come back to that. Therefore, the fallback would be popularity. For instance, Jennifer Garner has her pretend kitchen. Jamie Martin, he doesn't do anything particularly novel, but his Saturday kitchen is very popular because of his personality, and he's a bit of a hit with a cheeky glimpse to camera and an innuendo and particularly with a certain demographic amongst the ladies. Thus, he relies more on popularity than gimmicks and standing out. Thus, the successful shows either have something that makes them stand out from the crowd, or they don't, but the host is particularly charismatic and popular, and therefore it's successful. The problem that this one's wife has is that she's not able to stand out, and she isn't popular, which tends to suggest that this is going to be another project that's going to crash and burn. But remember, she thinks that she is innovative because what her narcissism causes her to do is to take something that belongs to somebody else and pass it off as her own by way of character trait acquisition. Those of you that have regularly followed my work know that character trait acquisition is part of the prime aims. Her narcissism causes her to seek control, draw fuel, acquire character traits and residual benefits in relation to the people that she deals with. She has opted, in effect, to think that her name alone will carry it believing herself to be popular even though she is not. She knows that she's unpopular with certain sections, but her narcissism, as I've explained before, causes her to dismiss that. And she still remains under the delusion that people will think that this is a brilliant show. And she's opted, in effect, for the approach of what's known as trad wife, which, of course, is somewhat contradictory for someone who holds herself out as an empowered feminist. Naturally, such a contradiction is no surprise to all of you, as we have seen her do this regularly. It's part of her narcissism. Accordingly, from what you've seen in the trailer, we get these pictures of her wearing dresses, looking like the archetypal 1950s housewife in a kitchen which clearly isn't her own, but it's more of a traditional type rather than all chrome and glass and modern and trendy, etc. That she is laying out the table in a traditional way, making it look like she's hosting afternoon tea, that the presentation of the food looks somewhat traditional, so that she presents as this industrious, pleasant trad wife. Where has she got this from? Well, it's quite plain that, and other people have identified this also, that she is emulating Emma Thynne, the Marchioness of Bath. For those of you who are unfamiliar with who she is, she's married to the 8th Marquess of Bath, and in 2020 she became the first black Marchioness in British history. She's the daughter of a Nigerian father and an English mother. Her father is a Nigerian oil billionaire. She was raised in South Kensington. She's been on Celebrity MasterChef, and she has been involved in Strictly Come Dancing. So she's got a profile in that respect. She has something called Emma's Kitchen, which is based at Longleat, the seat of the Marquess of Bath. And essentially the blurb for this is that using the atmospheric backdrop of the house's historic kitchens, Emma, Marchioness of Bath, has created an exciting attraction celebrating more than 440 years of cooking and recipe creation at Longleat. She states, "I have a real passion for food. I love to cook for my family and friends and relish any opportunity to entertain. It has been my ambition for some time to bring the heart of the house back to life. Emma's Kitchen is the result of that ambition, a space for me to share my passion and some of my favourite recipes. Welcome. I hope you enjoy." And I understand that she has been presenting her own cooking show for somewhere in the region of 8 or 9 years. So she's pretty well established compared to that of this one's wife. Now, for the purposes of balance, if you're going to be presenting a cookery show, whoever does it, it's naturally going to involve food, ingredients, and cooking. They're all going to have that in common. Otherwise, they wouldn't be cookery shows, would they? But then, as I mentioned earlier, you can have the differences in terms of what type of food are you cooking. Are you sticking, say, to modern British or Italian or Indian cuisine, Pan-Asian, whatever it might be? Are you cooking for vegans? Is it a carnivore's diet? What's the environment? What's the setting? What's the theme? There's lots of different ways that it can be presented. Accordingly, with this one's wife, she's not copying by virtue of the fact that she's presenting a cookery show. There's plenty of them. That's not the copying part. But it's the image that she's presenting of going down the trad wife route, and in particular, clearly emulating the Marchioness of Bath. You only have to look at the thumbnail that I presented you with this video, which shows Emma Thynne in an orangery where she's wearing a nice dress, and she has a table which is laid out with flowers and a cake and strawberries and a bit of fizz, creating an afternoon tea environment. And then, oh look, there's this one's wife wearing a dress which is a similar colour to that of the Marchioness of Bath. Similarly, the gathering, the presentation is taking place in what might be a summer house or an orangery of some sort, that it's a traditional looking English tea with a teapot and the best china and flowers, etc. It looks, even at the briefest of glances, like a carbon copy of what Emma Thynne has created. And it's quite clear that this is what this one's wife has done. Now, playing devil's advocate, let's just suggest, well, is it that coincidental, or is it that copying of her that she's gone down this route? After all, it might just be a coincidence that she's decided, I'm going to utilise this sort of English country garden, afternoon tea sort of vibe, and, well, somebody else has done that as well, but I didn't know about it. It is a possibility, absolutely. But what you must not lose sight of is this. This one's wife as a narcissist has two distinct factors which increase the likelihood of her having seen what the Marchioness of Bath has done and thought, I will do that too. The first is that this one's wife has form for plagiarising the work of other people. I'm not going to go through all the various examples of those. You are familiar with them, but we know that she's done it repeatedly before. Furthermore, we know that she is lazy. Now, there are certain narcissists, your glorious narrator amongst them, that have excellent work ethics and imaginations, that people who are brilliant creators of work. There are plenty of narcissists who are brilliant songwriters, authors, painters, entrepreneurs, innovators, etc. And their narcissism harnesses an existing intelligence, imagination, and work ethic for the purposes of seeking the prime aims. But there are many narcissists that are devoid of original thought, that have no accomplishments, that they have to take from other people because they lack the intrinsic ability and skills. This one's wife falls firmly within that camp. She is that empty vessel, not particularly intelligent, lazy, entitled, and therefore she doesn't have the raw materials, so that her narcissism has to make her look around and find something else that she can take and then build upon and call it her own. And it's evident that this has happened in relation to what the Marchioness of Bath has created. Furthermore, in relation to why she copies, not only is it a case that this one's wife has no concept of originality, because that's who she is as a person, but her narcissism doesn't have anything within her to prevent her from this plagiarism. She has no emotional empathy. She doesn't care for how it might affect those who she's replicating. She's got no sense of accountability. There's nothing there harnessing her, restraining her, saying, hang on a second, that little voice in her head telling her, you shouldn't be doing this. This has already been done. This belongs to somebody else. She's driven by that rampant sense of entitlement. She has no boundary recognition. And of course, the narcissism deems that it's necessary and causes her to believe that it's her own idea. That if you were to challenge her, she'd actually turn around and suggest that Emma Thynne has copied her, not the other way around. And she'd say it with a straight face. Why? Because her narcissism deludes her in that manner. She copies because, one, she is incapable of originality, because that's the type of person that she is, and two, she copies because her narcissism allows her to do so, indeed insists that she does so in order to use the hard work of other people to get to the prime aims. Remember, narcissism likes efficiency. It wants the maximum return on investment, and therefore if it can gain the prime aims, control, fuel, etc., with the minimum of effort, then it will do so. Why put in the hard yards if you can go and pinch something that somebody else has done? Why put in all of the tears and sweat and arduous labour when you can just pluck what somebody else has done and polish it up? The advantage that this one's wife has is that she has a huge machine around her. All of the producers involved with Netflix, the production assistants, the marketing department, all of that enables her to basically say, I want to do a trad wife thing. There are probably people who say, is that really the image that you want to put out there? This has rather been done to death, but of course we all know what this one's wife wants, this one's wife gets, and she doesn't listen to advice, so she'll have insisted. And as usual, along comes our old friend Collateral Consequences, where within less than a day, many people across the internet have identified, oh, look, she's copying again. Now, with some people, you could say, it's coincidence. It's bound to happen. 7 billion people on the planet. There will be instances where people have a similar idea. But we know that she's got form for this behaviour because of her narcissism. We know she has not an original thought in her head. And we know that her narcissism actively encourages her to steal the labour of other people and pass it off as her own. Accordingly, she's been caught copying again, and those are the reasons why. You'll have noticed much talk about this trailer and the forthcoming cookery show in various forums and so forth, with people asking the various similar questions. Do direct them to my work to give them the answers, to explain to them why she's done as she has. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.